HipHopHumboldt.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to this episode of the Hip Hop Humboldt Podcast. With me right now, we're doing a remote interview, but with me right now, I have the pleasure of getting to interview Amari J. What's up, fam? How you doing today?
What's up with it, man? I appreciate you having me on this show, man. Shout out to Humboldt County, man.
That's what's up. The pleasure's all mine, fam. I really appreciate your time. So for people that don't know Amari J, let's, just kind of start from the beginning of things, you know what I mean? So, because you've been doing music, as I've seen, I was, looking through your Spotify and stuff like that. You've been, releasing music for over 13 years at this point. You got a good catalog, you got 12 albums out and a bunch of singles out. And so, let's just start it off from the top. Just let's talk about you. Let's talk about where you from and how you got into the music.
Man, you already know I'm 15, 17, man. I appreciate that, man. It's been a long journey, man. From the Bay Area, you already know, Richmond, California to be exact, and just, moved around the whole Bay in California. Went to high school by like Berkeley. So I was in the middle of everything, able to see a lot, you know what I'm saying? And, I've been making music my whole life. So, when I was a kid, I always listened to like New Edition, Jackson 5, and all them type of artists, and that made me, I was always singing and dancing in the house, trying to record myself, whatever it was. And honestly, what gave me the courage to really make a song was shout out to Young Kurt. I'm always shout out Young Kurt. I give credit when it's due, unlike most. And he passed away now, but we got like a song or two together. And when I seen him doing this thing at like age 15, I was like, hold on. If he doing this at age 15, making the beat, the song, everything himself, recording himself and everything, I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me hop in the studio real quick and just try to see what I could do. And that's how it all started.
Okay. Now, was that in Richmond?
At the time, it was in Vallejo.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time, it was in Vallejo. Richmond. A lot happened in Richmond too, but like I'll say, like by that time I was in Vallejo already because I was like, what is it called? Commuting every day on a out of district transfer.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? From middle school to high school.
Okay.
So in elementary though, I always went to school in the 510 in the 5. So I always went to school in the 5, but at some point I did move to the 707 Vallejo. And then move to Benicia and stuff like that.
Okay. Moving around the Bay. That's what's up.
Yeah, man.
So now that was dope that you talked about Young Kurt, because when I was listening to some of the music earlier, I came across one of the tracks with you and Young Kurt on there, man. So, that was one of the things that I noticed with your music is that you can mix it up. Like you're not, in this, I feel like you're not in this one single lane because, I feel like you can sing and then you also got flow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. So now you was talking about, some of your influences, man. Those are definitely some of my same influences because hey man, I'm a 90s baby. I grew up, I was born 84, but that means I'm a 90s baby, basically, when I was a young kid and everything coming up, New Edition. But then, going back, we have to, not have to, but we was growing up with what our parents was listening to and playing. You was talking about Jackson 5, and so, my family was big into Motown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I grew up, you might have grown up watching the same thing, that Motown 25 special. You remember that?
All that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was so influential for so many people, you know what I mean? And so now, in the whether it's from the 90s and then you started making, at least releasing music in around 2013,
Yeah.
there's been different, kind of eras of hip hop. that
Yeah,
you know what I mean, that you grew up, or, coming up listening to and everything like that. The
exactly.
90s, it was more, maybe, I want to say like, gangster rap, you know what I mean? At least on the West Coast, you got a whole bunch of different, you got LA, but then you also have the Bay, two completely different spots with different sounds, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so, you got a lot of exposure on that side of things. Tell me a little bit more about some of your influences in terms of hip hop.
Yeah, shoot. It would be like Tupac was definitely probably my biggest influence when it came to hip hop. Um, like I said, the Bay Area music when that came into play, because that's where I was at. So I was listening to all the Bay Area artists for sure. And then I say too, like Nipsey Hussle, a big influence for me in rap.
Rest
Um,
in peace.
yeah, for sure. Rest in peace, man. He one of the reasons I do what I do with some of the stuff I got going on, man. Because we were supposed to collaborate and it just never happened. So
Mm,
due to that situation, I had met his brother Black Sam literally right before that, and then it was too late by that time. But shout out to the marathon and everybody over there. Um,
sir.
but yeah, man. So I say too, like, but I was listening to all hip hop, right? So all the '90s and early 2000s. You know what I'm saying? From the T Pains to the 50 Cents to the whoever you Ja Rule, whoever you want to name. So Nelly, all of them. So like they all had an influence on me making music for sure. Even
Yeah.
people I don't name, like, but all that early 2000s music for sure.
Yep. Yep. That was like a pinnacle. That was a great era right there, man. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's when like hip hop was like taking a different direction in terms of, what I'm saying, like what kind of happened. The way I look at it is, not everybody turned pop, but hip hop replaced pop in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
Gotcha.
a lot of
Okay.
people were just tapping in with hip hop, much more than it was before, and the way I kind of look at it. And so, from
Sure.
there, then you got the cats that, actually went that route, more, much more commercialized, you know what I mean? Like kind of like, almost pop, you know what I mean? And I'm not, it's
Yeah.
not derogatory. I'm just saying, you got your Drakes, you know what I mean? Took it to the max with it, you know what I mean? He took the formula and he's like, all right, I'm gonna just put the pedal to the metal, and, what I'm saying, make sure that, I'm just increasing my fan base year after year after year, you know what I mean? Then you got your a little bit more purists, you know what I mean? Whether it's like J. Cole, you know what I mean? And then you got your, something that's real specific to, I say, West Coast and representative of LA with Kendrick and Black Hippie and, you know what I mean, and TDE and everything like that. But that's hopping ahead probably about 10 years. That's like the 2010s almost at that point, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? But that was right around, like I was saying, your first at least album that I found on Spotify was 2013. So, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? At that point in time, it was, what I'm saying, like you was talking about, that's when Nipsey was like really starting to, like, I forgot what year exactly Crenshaw came out. It was like maybe like 2014, 2015, I think it was. I may be wrong about that, but
Yeah.
you know what
Somewhere.
I'm saying? I love that you talked about Nipsey though, man, because Nipsey's one of my biggest influences, man. You know what I mean? Like I said,
Yeah. So
I grew up in LA, and you know what I mean, I used to live around spots, you know what I mean, not in roller 60s, territory and everything like that, but right outside of it. And so, you know what I'm saying, I saw the different things that was going on in LA. You go 10 blocks and it's like a whole nother set, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And that's
yeah.
controlling and everything like that. Nipsey just did so much for the community that I see you doing. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get into that in this podcast later on because I got some questions for you about, what I mean, the Lost Children Foundation. You know what I mean? We got some
Yeah.
questions about, your label, the 1517.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna get into that, but
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's so good to see, man. Like, these same influences that influence so many people, but everybody's got their own art. And so that's what you've been able to do over the years is get your music out there and make it yours. You know what I mean? Because like I said,
Like,
you got a unique way you put yourself out there in terms of you versatile. You know what I mean? So uh
appreciate
So, what has the path been like for you over the last, like, 13 to 15 years of actually, getting to the point where you are able to like release? I mean, I'm calling it straight up quality music. You know what I mean? This is,
Appreciate it.
like I wouldn't even, there's the underground, you know what I mean, and people just trying to make it and building themselves up. But at least from when you started releasing the music that you got on Spotify, it was top quality at that point. So, what was the path like for you?
I appreciate that, my brother. The path, it was a crazy path. When I first made my first albums, and like I really started making albums in middle school, but at that time I was only singing. So and I didn't have no real studio and all that, so I was just recording on whatever I could find. So I was actually the laughing stock of the school all the way up until high school. I was like the laughing stock. Like they play my music at parties just to laugh. Like, hey, this Amari J right here. Like, you know what I'm saying? So and then after that, like I said, Young Kurt, that's when I said, you know what? I'm a rap. You know, Kurt influenced me to actually rap. Like now, you feel me? That's why I say like making music, it was all a process. Like, but where Kurt came in for me was he influenced me to actually rap. So the first rap song I got on or beat I got on was that D-Lo, biggest song by D-Lo. I ain't even gonna say the name because but yeah, got on there and I just remember everybody was rocking with it. And I'm like, okay, hold on, I'm finna start rapping too, on top of the R&B singing or whatever. And from there, like, oh yeah, when I started to get features with big names in Northern California, Bay Area, Young Gully, Birch Boy Bari, NHT Boys, and people like that at the time. Then everybody in high school wanted to be my best friend and all that, and thought the music was cool, and it just took a whole 360. And even the people I didn't get along with, they even came and asked me to work with them, and they got some beats for me and stuff like that. But I stood on business, like, and what I stand on just personally, like, if you doubted me in the past, it's pretty much a wrap. So especially getting bullied and stuff like that, you know, um, really over nothing. So I always had to defend my craft and defend myself, just like Erica Badu say, like as artists is sensitive to us. So um, that's probably why too I work so hard to make quality music.
That makes a lot of sense, man. That makes absolute sense. Sometimes that struggle, you know what I mean, pushes people to a point where it's like, nah, like I was always gonna do it, but I'm gonna just prove to y'all that y'all was on some other, some other shit, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, so
Yeah, for sure.
that's what's up though, man. So, one of the other things I noticed, so it seems to me like, and we're gonna get into 15, 17 in a minute, but it seems to me like you have vision and you know what you're doing. And so you know how to navigate because and I'm just one of the many things that I noticed when I was looking at your Spotify, looking through your, your IG and your presence out there is that you got a lot of radio edits that are available on your Spotify, which is the smart play. You know what I mean? You want to get your music on the radio, you gotta have some radio edits to be able to send out there to the radio shows.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That I mean, and just as an R&B artist coming up, that's what that's what I'm paying attention to. So anybody that was an R&B artist, certain people when the early 2000s came, the bigger R&B artists that was making the most noise, they'd always have a clean version too. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just coming from that made me be like, okay, I need clean versions to everything. Plus, like you said, you want to get on the radio, you got to have some radio edits. So I just kind of made sure I was already in place and in motion.
That's right. That's right. That's a smart move. So I mean that takes me into the next thing, you know what I'm saying? Because there's always the business side of it. And you know what I'm saying? That's one of the things that Nipsey was all about was the entrepreneurial side of, business and making things happen. And that's what he did with the marathon and then Black Sam keeping it going. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Let's on the business side of it, let's talk about 15, 17 for a minute. What's you we was talking before the recording, but let me just let them know like what 15, 17 is.
Yeah, man. So, 15, 17, man, that's the hood. Richmond, California, where I'm from in Richmond. That's where my granny house at. RIP to my granny Brenda. You know what I'm saying? And, I speak about her a lot in my music and stuff like that. So that's where her house was. It was 15, 17. And when she passed away in 2022, that's when I really went hard with the 1517, because my granny was everything to me, and I grew up over there, and that's just what it is. So I put it on my back, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna make it bigger than just the hood, bigger than just a name. You feel me? So I'm like, you know what? Shoot, I made an album called 1517, made a second album called I Am 1517. There's definitely gonna be a third at some point. And then I decided, let me make this a label, because 1517, the first album, was like one of my biggest albums since when I first started, type of thing. Like it went crazy. So that's what happened with that. And yeah, so I made like 3 songs too. I got the 1517 intro, I got the I Am 1517, and then I got the latest one, which is dropped in like 2025, still 1517, with my boy Ann on there.
Okay. Dope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So then I made a record label out of it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put some young homies on, and put the young artists on, and put these young kids on, from certain schools that my nonprofit work with, or just I work with in general, or whatever, or go visit, or whatever the case is, and try to get them something, positive to try to do, as far as not being in the streets all day and things like that. Like, man, let's give y'all some hope, because when you coming from where I'm coming from, we ain't got much hope. That's what one thing people got to understand, and remember, like, coming from where we coming from, we don't have much hope. Sometimes the only hope we got is being the biggest music artist, or rapper, I should say, in sports, making it as a basketball star, football star. That's everybody dream in the hood. So, you know, just trying to give them what nobody gave me, and help them out, and just make them feel good about what they doing, and show talent. You know what I'm saying? Because and art, that's what it's about. You know what I'm saying? So I'm about art. I'm an artist, and I like to create art and collaborate on artist creations,
Right, right.
artistic creations. Excuse me, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up. No, that's what's up, man. I was just, and that's really commendable, you know what I mean, for a community, because not everybody's out there, moving like that. There's only so many people
Oh,
that's out there actually trying to help others, you know what I mean? Nowadays, we live in this society where it's, just more like it's cutthroat, you know what I mean? And, everybody's, just trying to make it. A lot of people are just scraping and, are just dealing with their own struggles. And so there should be way more people, doing that kind of thing in the whole world, you know what I mean, helping each other out, you know what I mean. And so when you do find people, that could change somebody's life completely. Like, I'm sure you've already changed lives out there, and you still have more people that you're going to touch and change their life for the better, you know what I mean. So shout out to you for that.
so I appreciate that, my brother. I appreciate that. That's what it's all about, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Nip. Shout out all the people that really, help people out. I can't even name certain people, because people just be hating so much on everybody, and we always get crucified when we get in this line of work. So, I'm only name right now the people like the Nipsey Hussles, and the Tupacs that made it out a little bit unscathed.
Right, right. Real leaders,
Yeah,
and I look at it now, and so we got, I'm gonna tap in with you about a few more questions here, but I'm just looking at, like the whole kind of, scene and what's going out there, what's going on out there right now. For instance, talk even just related to Nip, because I feel like Nip was a real leader, because I really feel like Nip was a lot of glue to LA. You know what I mean? And a lot
yeah,
of different groups in LA, a lot of different factions
for
that
sure.
were, keeping whether it's keeping it peace, or keeping it at, just keeping things moving, because just for instance, right now, the big thing that's going on, right, that's, out there in this country, in terms of, there's all these RICO lawsuits, and people are getting caught up by the feds lately, man. So that's one of the things I want to say that real quick too. This is
Yeah,
not one of those podcasts where, what I'm saying, this is not a Adam 22 no jumper, or Vlad, or nothing like that, where the feds is tapping in and people telling on each other. We don't do that on this podcast, you know what I mean? But that's what's been going on. one is that
Yeah,
too many people been out there talking too much, whether it's dudes like Whack 100 or you know what I mean, or like we talking about Adam 22 and all that, you know what I mean? And then now these cats is coming out where we're seeing that these cats are like, you know, like almost like confidential informants for the system, you know what I mean? And kind of like
yeah,
getting people caught up. People
hell yeah,
podcasts and like, you know, start telling on each other and then the feds is listening. You know what I mean?
yeah, for
So,
sure, man, for
yeah,
sure.
you
I
know, and then
agree.
we've seen a bunch of, you know, lawsuits out there. The feds are trying to clap people up, we know, with RICO charges. That's been the big thing, you know, the last few years, you know, trapping, you know, getting, you know, artists on RICO charges. And we've seen, you know, this big whole thing go with you know, Young Thug. And fortunately, Thugger got off. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Everything that happened with that. But now we got, you know, Dirk. Dirk is wrapped up in it. You know what I mean? It's
Man,
looking good for Dirk. You know what I mean? Right now. And then relating that back to Nipsey, that's why I was saying Nipsey is such a leader and was so important. He was a true leader because he was actually moving it forward for Rolling 60s for RSC. But then we look at like, you know, who was, you know, who to kind of took over when Nipsey, you know, passed away, rest in peace, of course. It's been Big U, and now Big U's wrapped up in these charges and all this and all that that's going on out there. And a lot of it's from, like I was saying, cats going on these podcasts and telling on each other and, you know
yeah,
what I mean? And just craziness like that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that. And that's what, you know, when you have a real leader in place that's really actually like showing the way for people, it helps people not get sucked into these, you know, with these pockets to where the feds can just come and snatch them up and snatch you up on some charges, right? You know what
exactly.
I mean? And so that's one of the big
Yeah.
things for me is that, you know, Nip on the entrepreneurial level, but then on just the community building level, he was a leader that built his community the right way. You know what I mean?
Real talk, real talk,
You know? Yeah.
real talk.
And so nowadays, you know, like I said, that's why we need more people like Nip. We need more people like you and what you doing. You know what I mean? Like helping the kids out there and showing them the way and giving them opportunities. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
just for instance, up here in Humboldt County where I am, right? You know what I mean? There's only so many, you know what I mean, studios and everything like that. Like there's barely any, like there's basically like no public studios. You have to like know somebody.
right.
I mean, like
That's
getting with
yeah.
like a couple people that may have a studio or this or that. You know what I mean? And that limits opportunity.
It does. It
Well,
does. Yeah, over there especially, I noticed that for sure.
yeah, yeah. So shout out to you because then you're able to actually, you know what I mean, like help uplift people where you're at, you know what I mean, and see that, you know what I mean, like this is, you know, me actually, you know, getting my creativity out, and that can make a big difference, man. You know, like I was talking to you about before we started the podcast. You know, one of the things that me and my homies been doing is doing events up here for a few years, and I was, you know, noticing like 3 years ago when we first started that there was a couple cats where they was just like, man, like thank you for even just giving me a microphone and letting me get on stage because that, you know, saved me from going down a dark path. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because I would have no avenue to get my creativity out there. You know,
exactly. Yeah,
so
that's real talk. That's real talk too. Shout out to you for, giving people a platform, and artists and whoever just a platform as well. You feel me? And I got some things that, I want to run by you off camera about, some things about your platform that we could put together as well.
dope. That's what's up. That's what's up. Hey, I appreciate that. And like I was saying too, you know, we got the radio show, so I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna play some of these radio edits that you got out there on Spotify. I'm gonna be putting those on the radio show, exposing
Appreciate it.
here in Humboldt County to Amari J. You know what I mean?
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I got love for Humboldt County, man. I've been up there a lot of times. I've been Mendocino. I've been all over. I've been Sonoma County. I lived in Santa Rosa for a few years. You know what I'm saying? Back with my ex, back couple like during the fires. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? So I was there for the fires. So like I got love for that whole area for sure. That 101.
yep, yep. That's it. That's it. Heck yeah. So let me ask you real quick. Let me ask you, talk to me about the Lost Children Foundation.
Yeah, man. So the Lost Children Foundation, we trying to launch that real soon. But it's kind of like the Voice of the Youth project, where that's the biggest one right now, the Voice of the Youth project. Um, but the Lost Children Foundation, it's gonna be for finding lost children around the world, California, whatever it is. But it's a few other things that I have to put in order and get another team ready for that to go ahead and do that. But right now, the biggest thing we tackling is the school districts.
Okay. Okay.
Right now, as far as right now.
That's what's up. That's
But,
what's up.
but the Lost Children Foundation, yeah, we trying to get that off the ground, man, to help these families with their lost kids. So it's a whole plan I got with that I can't say too much about on here or just in the public in general, because it's going to compromise what we got going on. So
Right, right. The nature of it, you got to be real careful. You know what I mean? Because then once people know the moves, then they, adjust, and we're not trying to let them adjust. We're trying to make sure that you're successful with what you're doing, because that's a real problem. You know what I mean? We know about these, trafficking rings that be out there and everything
yeah,
like that, and kids go, thousands of kids go missing every year. It's
that's
crazy.
what I'm saying. That's
And
what I'm saying.
so that's a real need. That's real commendable right there. And then the other thing you was talking about for a minute there was it the voice of the children?
The Voice of the Youth Project.
There you go. Talk about that.
So yeah, man, the Voice of the Youth Project, we've been running strong, man, since 2023. And what I mean by running strong is really it's a youth activism club. So I got all these kids involved from all over California, man. Even some that are in other states too, but mostly California based, Northern California, where we got like a network of like 2,000 kids, families, stuff like that. And yeah, so we got this awareness page. We got a website for it. And we just do a lot in the community and respond to certain situations that happen. Most of the time we respond to the violent situations that happen in the school districts and provide mentoring and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. But you know, things come up like Santa Rosa, they just had a little situation with an overdose and two kids lost their life. Usually I don't get into um, like drug related incidents, but two kids lost their life. I couldn't hold back. That's just the heart in me. So we put something together for that. And then, it's other things that go on. It was just a fatal car crash in Marin County, one of the districts that I got love for. And unfortunately, some students did lose their life. And I just want to say condolences to the families, condolences to the friends, and everybody that's affected by that situation. And I hope that they can get through it. And I hope all the staff members can get through it as well, man, because that's a serious situation to go through. So I don't wish that on nobody. I hope all these kids out here be safe, whether it's driving, whether it's whatever you're doing, just be safe with it.
Right, right. Nah, that's real commendable of you, man, to be addressing that. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things about hip hop that people don't talk about enough is that hip hop. One of the main things about hip hop is about awareness. You know what I mean? Awareness of people where they're at and what's going on with people. And so then that means that hip hop is going to be in a position. Hip hop artists, people involved in hip hop, producers, DJs, etc., or just people supporting the hip hop scene, they're going to be more in closer to situations that happen because they're right there. What I
Right,
mean? You're gonna be able to see these situations before these whether it's government or these bigger nonprofits that may have a bunch of money or they're not tapped in. You know what I
right.
mean? They're not actually seeing what's happening, you know what I mean? Like on, in the schools and on the streets and different areas and everything like that. And hip hop is in that position to be able to help. And so shout out to you, man, for actually, making, those kind of efforts happen. You know what I mean? That's really important nowadays.
Appreciate that. And let me touch back on the Voice of the Youth Project, like how it really started was, and like I said, I just named two incidents, but I know you heard about, just the stabbing in Santa Rosa, where a kid lost their life in at a school campus, on the school campus. Shout out to Montgomery High School, and I hope everybody can heal from that as well. But basically, when I lived in Santa Rosa, I lived on a street. It was called Creekside, and it was literally right by Montgomery High School. So I passed that high school every day, for 3 years at least of my life or whatever. So, you know, um, And so basically with that situation, um, the kids were advocating themselves for a change and to add more campus security and stuff like that at their school. So I seen that and I was like, wow, I ain't never seen no kids really advocate this hard. Like they set up walkouts, like they got 5 schools in that district, but they set up walkouts where all the schools was walking out just to make the impact and protest that. And so that was an interesting situation. But basically, I'd seen it and I wanted to make it bigger as far as just the cry for help, because I didn't know what was going on really in their district. And so, come to find out what's going on, I'm like, wow. So they had this thing called Value Life, Not Violence, and most of those kids ended up graduating that year, of course. So I said, man, I don't want this to just be nothing and forgot about, man, because you know, it's nobody like posting on the page now. So it's like that's what I feel like would have happened. But I made the Voice of the Youth project based off of that to keep what they had going and make it bigger, and then get all of the kids that was from that and more to be a part of the Voice of the Youth project in some kind of way. And when I say the Voice of the Youth, it's them. It's their voice. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm the voice or nothing like that, but it's their voices, and they need to be heard. And so that's how the Voice of the Youth project even started. But from there, then I was like, okay, well, somehow it turned into a club at certain schools for youth activism that I was doing some close work with, and then I made it basically into a nonprofit legally and everything. So we done got certain products from the state, like Narcan to help out people in communities and stuff like that, and just a whole bunch of other stuff that it turned into. But the main thing is we respond to any school violence, whether it's in California, the U.S., anywhere in the USA, we responding to it some type of way.
That's what's up.
Yeah, or at least reaching out.
Heck yeah. And you did it through, you did it all, the right way, and getting a nonprofit set up to that way, you know what I mean? You're able to actually able to respond, you know what I mean? And hopefully potentially, get some more, more and more money, grant money and stuff like that in to be able to, have, support the communities out there that need the people that get affected by these, incidents that happen and everything like that. So shout
Yeah,
out to you for that, fam. Because like I was saying,
thank you.
man, a lot of people, what I'm saying, everybody's just moving and doing their own thing. And especially, when it comes to, hip hop is this competitive, you know what I mean? Competitive type of, you know what I mean? Like, art where, people are not necessarily thinking about others, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so
exactly.
that's really commendable, man. And
And
so
that all came from what we just talked about, Nipsey Hussle. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Just seeing what Nip did and all that, it was something else. I remember, right, like, so when I reached out to try to work with them and stuff like that, that's when, well, I already had a big homie from the Rolling 60s named Trey from the Dog Pound. And
mm,
so he had got me in a couple of doors in that 2013 era. And so, but he, he's doing big things. So he's not just hanging out where they're at and stuff like that. I just remember that when I heard about the marathon and Nipsey Hussle, I was just like, whoa, this is something different. This is Tupac right here. This is bigger than, like, this is crazy. So I'm like, and he really out here doing it. I feel like Tupac didn't get the chance to do everything that he wanted to do, but like Nipsey had the opportunity to actually, buy up the whole hood and buy up the hood store and turn it into a monumental clothing store, and then he owned a Fat Burger over there and stuff like that. So, and hired people from the community, haircuts and stuff like that. So I remember rocking with them. I was on my way, I feel like, to really do something great with Nip. I got to his brother, his blood brother, Black Sam, and I gave him my music and stuff, and we had a great little conversation, and it was over with. And I had plans, and I feel that we were gonna make something happen. But after that happened, and then I got into some trouble with law enforcement. Like you said, when the Ricos came and stuff, that's why I'm like, okay, the Ricos coming. Um, I went in my situation with law enforcement for a little bit and made it out. You know what I'm saying? And then Nipsey Hussle died. So I'm like, you know what? I'm about to change my whole life around. So I went to jail for just a little bit, due to whatever happened. So that caused me to change my life, everything just at once. And I was like, uh, when Nip died, I'm like, well, who gonna carry this on? There's not many people that's gonna carry it on, like you said. So I said, you know what? So I went and tried to holler at Black Sam again when I was able to see him at the store because I was coming back to the Marathon store all the time after he died. And actually, the homies over there let me through the gate. Like they had it blocked off. Nobody could get through. They was not letting nobody through there. But they bless them. They let me through there, and they kind of. I remember sitting in the car with him, and he just told me like how everything happened word for word. Like this the spot right here. This what he walked out of here like it was just like crazy. Shout out to them for that. And the two I remember, I even went to the gas station, the little shell right next to Nipsey's store. And I kid you not, I'm at the gas station in a red car too. I'm from the Bay. I'm not no blood or no Crip, but I had a red car, everything. But I kid you not, 100 Crips pulled up to the gas station, took up every gas pump. They was having some function or something like. They pulled up, so I'm thinking in my head like, how am I going to even get my car out? Because they blocked all the pumps. Like, but I seen one of the dudes that looked like he had the biggest influence came up over there, hollered at him, let him know what it is, what I'm out here for. Hey man, I'm just trying to get back to the Bay. Man, he had everybody move their cars for me, stuff like that. So it's just like I got a lot of respect and love for LA. The first time I went out to LA, they brought me to $1 million studio that I've never seen in my life. I've never, to this day, I ain't recorded in a studio that looked like that. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to the members in LA that held it down. Shout out Fruittown as well. So it's been a lot of little communities within LA that kind of helped me out.
That's what's up. Yeah, man, that's the thing too. You know what I mean? Like there's, there's LA and there's the Bay, but it's all West Coast hip hop and it's all, love out here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of, there's a lot of problems that happen and everything like that.
For
But
sure.
you have to know how to operate. You know what I mean? And it sounds like you do. You know what I mean? And so,
On 15, 17.
there you go. That's what it is, man. I'm glad that you talked about that, man, because that was a difficult time, man. And then when Nip left us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that just, for me, man, I remember the day when I heard it because I had been following Nips and I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not, there's people that was tapping in since, you know what I'm saying? Bullets had no name and everything like that
Yeah.
even before, right? But I just started tapping in with Nip myself when he dropped Crenshaw.
Mine was a marathon, so I wasn't there from the jump too, for sure.
Got you. Yep, yep, yep. And then at the point when, and then when, Shitty killed him, and everything like that and everything, man, I just remember that very vividly, man. Like, I mean, my legs went out from under me, man. I hit the ground. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe this. You know what I mean? Like, cause Nip for me, man, I grew up, you know what I mean, loving Pac. And then I felt like Nip really was an incarnation of Pac. You know what I mean? And even if not that, I mean, he at least definitely passed the torch to Nip. You know what I mean? In terms of being a leader for LA. You know what I mean? And so, and then when Nip got, I just learned a lot of my moves. You know what I mean? On the entrepreneur side from Nipsey. You know what I mean? And so.
Hmm.
You
Yeah, man.
that was a
For sure.
big loss for hip hop, and I'll be out there, still repping to this day. I give a eulogy for Nip every single year. I try to make a little, I'm a little just hobbyist level producer, but every year when Nip, on Nip's birth anniversary of his death, I'll put out a little song or whatever it is, just to show respect and everything like that, because he just was so meaningful for me. That was, but for all intents
Okay.
and purposes, that was like Jesus Christ for me. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
got you. For
Yeah.
me, that was more so. Man, I'm like, you can't even be naming people nowadays, bro. But it's all good for sure. I got
Yeah.
one of those too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Nah, I feel you. Nah, I feel you. Nah, man, I really appreciate you, hopping on here. So we just, just a couple more things I wanted to get into with you, So
yeah.
what else you got coming for 2025?
Man, 2025, man, we just gonna keep dropping videos. I'm working on a new album, but there's so many directions. Like you said, versatile. So there's so many different directions to go with it. I don't even know which direction to go with. I'm trying to have a little bit of everything on there. I feel like the last album, that's why it won the little internet award for the top charts. I feel like it had everything on it. Pretty much it had everything on it. So the next album I make, try to have everything on it. Or who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows, man? I make the music off the feeling, and I don't never force myself to do this and force myself to make a song. I know, like, just for me, like, I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? If I really want to make a hit, if I really want to make a real song, I can't force myself up in the studio or to write or this, that, and other. So I really go off of feeling. So something happened, and I'm in that feeling some type of way. I'm in that mood. Okay, throwing a beat, here I go. You know what I'm saying? All my music, real life. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, no, I love it, and that really shines through when when people hear the music, they can tell when somebody's releasing whether it's singles or albums, and you put something out there that's not, that somebody's trying to do something, trying to do a little too much sometimes, rather than just doing what they feel, because it's your art. And when you start to slide into, well, I want to, make money from this on some kind of level, or
Mm.
you got this goal to do this or that with it, it sometimes just blurs that your actual creativity. And people can really, that resonates when people, when they can actually listen to some music and say, oh, that's this dude's coming from his heart,
For
and
sure. For
what he wants
sure.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna be dropping some new artists this year, you feel me? So shout out to all the artists on 15, 17, and whoever else we gonna put out, man. So, I've been executive producing since I came out too, so we gonna get on that too. We gonna keep going with this youth empowerment, and just keep on hitting these communities. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like I told you, man. Like, I hear that passion in your voice about Nipsey. I got that same, like, bro. I got that same. Like, I'm willing to die for this, bro. I definitely am willing to die for this and go out like a Nip, if that's what it means to change the lives of these people or whatever, help some people, whatever it is, you know. And when you in this line of work, I always say, be ready for crucifixion.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody that helped out all these people like a Nipsey Hussle, a Michael Jackson, and was crucified. So you got to be ready for that and know it can happen. Not to say it's going to happen or whatever, but just know it can happen. And it's a lot more people we can name in that case too. I mean, Pac, it's a whole bunch of people we can name, man. So, getting into this lane is also dangerous. Because it holds a lot of value in people's lives. Whether like the rap is dangerous because you gang banging and you got enemies and ops. But this is more dangerous than rap because you trying to change the narrative
Mhm.
of what's going on and what people putting out. So when you're trying to change the narrative, it's always going to be people against you and people against that. And so, dealing with a lot of adversity at the same time, doing what I'm doing as well. So don't, it ain't just been all good and whatever. A lot of people have been judgmental due to my background, due to whatever it is. But let it be Snoop Dogg that say, hey, I want to go to this school and do a speech and talk to these kids. Oh, they gonna open arms, let them through the door. Oh, it's Snoop Dogg, no problem. But it's a double standard when you underground or you not all the way up there. You know what I'm saying? And in my opinion, it shouldn't be a double standard if the main goal and the common goal is to do what everybody else is trying to do, and that's help people and that's change lives and change the lives of these children. So there's a lot of egos that go on, man, and a lot of just a lot of doubt, at the same time. But that's only from the people that it's not from the kids. So let me just say that. But
Right.
shout out to the amazing teachers I've worked with and come in contact with. Shout out to the amazing principals that I've worked with and come in contact with. Shout out to all my students everywhere, man. Shout out to my Alameda kids. Shout out to my Dublin kids. Shout out Santa Rosa. Shout out Marin County. Um, all these kids, man, great kids. So the whole California, man. My goal is to reach as many schools as possible. So it's 10,000 or more schools in California, Um, I got a lot of work to do.
Nah, but I see you doing it, man. You on the right path with it, and you actually care. I can hear that, when you're talking about it. You know what I mean? And that makes all the difference. If you was out there doing it for an ulterior motive, then you don't end up having that, that lift from God. You know what I mean? To actually push, into that right direction. You know what I mean? So, nah, I see you doing it, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? Don't stop for anything. And I know that you already know the way. You just, it's all about, just continuing to do what you're doing. So. No, I love to hear it. Um,
I appreciate that. And I want to get into helping out, some other counties. Of course, Oakland. Shout out to my Oakland kids as well. But it's some other counties that I definitely want to get to. I want to get to where y'all at. I want to get to Mendocino. I heard it's a lot of overdoses that do happen over there. So those are some places I like to touch too. But I'm touching everywhere possible, and we just gonna keep it rolling.
that's what's up. That's what's up. And I can't wait till you come up here. I just let you know I'm gonna keep my eye on you and make see you just continue to bless these areas in California and continue to spread it out and can spread that out, spread the message. You know what I mean? So like I said, we just need more people out there like you doing what you're doing. So shout out to you, fam.
Appreciate that, man. And it's a lot of kids too, like or students, former students, whatever I'll, worked with that's a part of this. And it's like, where we keep spreading it, right? So it's like, another person want to be interested in it, that'll spread to the next person. And that's what it's all about. And just spreading awareness, letting people know what's going on as well. Like, there's so many counties out here and stuff happening in all these counties, you gotta know that you ain't alone. You feel me? It might seem like you alone because this happened, but just know that it's other people hurting in other places too. And just, Voice of the Youth Project, we basically keep a log. Like this has our Instagram page has been pretty much a log of everything since we started of just what's happened in all these schools over the course of 2023 since then. So you go check that out. It's sad, but that's what's going on, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. No, y'all are doing it the right way. You know what I mean? And so, uh, Amari, let them know how to tap in with you, whether it's the Instagram or the website or whatever you want to let them know to tap in, be able to tap in with you on, whether it's on the artist level, on the hip hop level, or on what I mean, the community efforts that you be doing. Let them know.
Yes, sir, man. So Amari J, man, on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Instagram is Amari J official. Uh, Go follow the Voice of the Youth Project Instagram. Go to the website too, voiceoftheyouthproject.com. 1517 Records. Go ahead and follow that Instagram too. And yeah, man, we just gonna keep it rolling from there, man. And I appreciate you having me on this show. And keep doing your thing. I respect your platform, and I would love to brainstorm some more ways we could connect and just get some things out to the people, man. Shout out to the kids, shout out to the youth. Um, and yeah, man, I pray nobody in this world has to suffer, even though that's what's going on. But you know,
Right, right. That's why we need more people like you, man, showing them the way, and then you inspire more to be, what I'm saying, on that same tip where they trying to help other people. You know what I mean? And that's how the goodness spreads. Part of mankind is being kind to man. You know,
exactly.
so
And it
and
took me a long time to get there, but it took me a lot of things to go through and open my eyes and really get there. You know what I'm saying? And just going through life, man. And I look at it like this, like instead of crashing out and using all this for bad and doing certain things and seeing what these other rappers are doing and trying to be hot like them and do what they doing, it's just like it just ain't me though. You know what I'm saying? And you always got to be yourself, man, and stay motivated, stay inspired out here, and get rid of doubt. That's the biggest thing I'm always say is to get rid of doubt, because you doubt yourself, man, it's gonna be hard for anybody to believe in you at that point.
right, right, most definitely. I'm glad you're teaching that. You know what I'm saying? Because one of the block. Something that blocks a lot of people a lot of the time. They don't think they can. You know what I mean? And so they need to hear that message. They need to hear that more and more. So shout out to you for spreading that in California to the schools, to the kids, to the people. You know what I mean? We need more people out there like you, Amari J, for real, man.
I appreciate it. And I never knew all this was gonna happen. I when I was younger, I was like, okay, one day I'll, be a priest or something like that, a pastor, something like that's what I was thinking when I was a kid, like something to help people out. But I was thinking later down the line, you know what I mean? But I said, yeah, I ain't got millions of dollars like Nip, but why not start right now? You know what I'm saying? While this passion burning and it turned into something bigger than what I expected, and it's been a blessing. It truly has. And like I said, man, I give my life for these kids, dog.
That's what's up. Yep. Yeah, man. It reminds me too of it was at the end of To Pimp a Butterfly. It was that Mortal Man interview where Kendrick is obviously was not really Kendrick interviewing Pac, but that was what they pieced it together as. It was like as if Kendrick was interviewing Pac, and Pac said, you know what I mean? Like by the time, you know what I mean, people once when a man gets to like let's say 30 or even 40 years old, it's like the world has sucked their soul out of them, and so they don't have that same, you know what I mean, like want to help people, and that happens a lot out there, man. And so when people do have that passion, you know what I mean, I'm glad people like you out there actually, like moving off of it, you know what I mean, because it's not, it's just, things look bleak out there on so many different levels in so many different ways, but we still have to live our lives the best that we can and operate the best that we can, by the people around us, you know what I mean, if that's what you're going to do. And so, it doesn't happen enough. So we need more people out there, operating like that to care about the community, to care about each other. You know what I mean? We absolutely need that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you saying that, man. And you know, man, there's just so much I want to do and keep doing, but we're gonna keep it up, man. And we got the Heal One World Foundation too, that you know we want to launch eventually too, just a humanitarian organization because it's bigger than just it's all about giving back. That's what I'm on.
There you go. Yep. That's what's up, fam. So, man, like I really appreciate you, taking the time to do this episode with me. I'm gonna get this episode out as soon as possible for the people. I know the people are gonna enjoy it. You know what I mean? Let people tap in that, in Humboldt County that may not be, aware of you and what you're doing. Now they're gonna know about you. You know what I mean? And so make sure y'all tap in with Amari J. That's at Amari J official on Instagram. You know what I mean? And like I said, fam, when you're ready to come back, whether it's calling in to the radio show that we do every other Saturday on the FM radio on 94.7, or when you want to do another hip hop Humboldt podcast episode to just let them know what you got coming and everything like that, a little update. Tap in with me, let me know, we'll do it.
Man, that's love right there. I appreciate you, my brother, on 1517, man.
Hey man, the appreciation is likewise. All right, Amari J. Any last words you want to give out to the people? Because this has been, I'm saying, I feel like people after listening to this, this is one of those ones that just inspires people. You know what I mean? Is there anything you want to leave it on? You want to leave it where we at, or what's up?
Man, we're gonna leave it where we at, man. Like I said, man, shout out to the youth. Um, and we're gonna keep it rolling, man, for these kids, man, for the new generations to come, man. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what's up. All right, fam. I really appreciate you. I'm wishing you the best with all the endeavors that you're doing, all the work that you're doing, man. I'm impressed with it. I love to see it. And I can't wait to speak with you next till the next time.
Appreciate that, man. And salute to you as well, my brother.
Thank you, fam. All right, then, y'all. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Hip Hop Humboldt Podcast. Until next time, y'all.